in this book, in this pathway really for serving God and for being the highest functioning practitioner of Jewish mysticism, we have learned many, many types of love and types of awe that we want to insert into our system of meditation. Lower love, higher loves, loves that start from within the world, loves that come from outside the world. This form of love that we're learning is described as being the very, very highest form of love that's available through Jewish systems of meditation. It's called love like gold. Love like gold. And it is an exception to all the other forms of love. So we're learning about love like gold. This is an exceptional love because in the system of Kabbalah that we've learned, you may be familiar, we have a whole channel, a whole map of how our consciousness is flowing through our body that is based on the Sfirot, or the divine emanations within the Ein Sof. I'm not going to go deep into it today, but essentially there's a right column. So these three circles on the right, Chochmah, Chesed, and Netzach, that's the right column. And there's a left column, Bina, Gvura, and Hod, that are masculine and feminine, respectively. And we can go through, for those that don't know, it's wisdom, understanding, knowledge, that's the top, the intellect. The emotional is love and kindness, strength, and beauty. And finally, victory, acknowledgement, foundation, and then Malchut, they all flow into royalty. But if you go back to just the emotions, love and kindness and strength, the emotional aspects of Chesed and Gevurah are love and fear, or love and awe. So Chesed, which is on the right, which is love, so far every one of the loves that we've learned about has come from that right side, from Chesed. This now is the first time that we're hearing about a love that is coming from the left side, from Gevurah. That's A, what makes it exceptional, but B, also what gives its direction, as we'll see. Because the direction of Chesed is down, is drawing God into the world, because I love God, I want to be close to God, I want to bring God into the world. The direction of Gevurah is up. Right? It is, I want to elevate the world up to God, I want to get out of the world, I want to be gone from the world, there is no world. So this love has a feeling of Gevurah, of retracting from the world, and just wanting to be part of oneness, nothing to do with the world. If we look at the different categories that we've put into these columns of left and right, the Alter Rebbe has already compared this love to all other loves using a number of metaphors. So I want to go through them. On the one hand, he said, like I said, normal love comes from Chesed, from the right, from love. This comes from Gevurah as it is within Bina. So it comes from awe, or from fear, as it is within my cognitive process, my soul's ability to have any cognitive functions. So essentially, this is from Gevurah as opposed to Chesed. The second metaphor is, if normal love is like silver, which is precious, which is beautiful, which can acquire things, but which is, we described it as, what's the word we used in class? We said it was static, not static, but...
So it was cold, it wasn't...
Cold, fine, cold. Silver has a cold stillness, it's there. Add fire to silver, you give this restless color, that's gold. Gold seems to be trying to get somewhere. So that's what this love is. This love like gold is a love that wants to leave the world, as opposed to a love that wants to draw godliness down into the world. Remember this? Yeah. Another set was up versus down. Up versus down. So not intuitive when you think of love and awe, of thinking of love is down and awe is up. But like I said, when I love God, I want to bring God into the world. I want to share ideas about God. I want to talk to my friends. I want to do a mitzvah. I want to bring godliness into the world. All that's chesed. That's like Abraham. Abraham wanted to run around and get people to do blessings and bring godliness into the world. Up, that's like Yaakov. Yaakov said, no, you come to me, I'm not coming to you. I'm going to assess, I'm going to get you to work on yourself. I'm going to get you to elevate yourself. So you're going to rise up to meet God. And you'll get as much godliness as you deserve based on your level. It's bringing the world up to God, and it's holding back on just spreading that divine light everywhere. So, Gevura versus Chesed, gold versus silver, up versus down. Now we have another set we're going to reach, which is the Levi versus the Kohen.
Wasn't it also with water and fire?
Well, yes, water and fire too. Yeah, I'll have that here.
Okay.
Good memory. Good work. Right? And what does fire do and what does water do? Right? Fire goes up, water comes down. So they all fit together. Let's do that first, since it was brought up. So, fire and water. Chesed is like water. What happens to water? It lands. If water lands on a mountain, it will flow down a stream. It will flow down through a river. It will flow down until it reaches the lowest place, eventually the sea or the water table, whatever it is. And from there, it will nourish everything. It will nourish everything. That's the other loves like Chesed. They come from a very high place. They flow down. They always come down to the lowest place. They just want to bring that life force down, and then they want to give life to things like water does. Fire, that's the quality of this new love like gold, this highest love. Fire is not interested in being in the world. If you look at a fire, it's always reaching up, trying to even break off from its source and rise back up to its break off from its wick, or from, what's the word for what it's on? It's called a wick. Break off from the wick it's on and fly up to its source and even extinguish itself. Because if a fire were to leave the wick that it's burning on and fly back up to its source, there's no physical fire anymore. It's gone. It's now just abstract fire. It's potential fire. It's back to its source in the spiritual elements. That's this kind of love. When I'm feeling this love like fire, what I want from the world, I want to leap off of this wick of my body. I want my soul to go back to its source, and there is no actual me in that source. It's just pure God. So it's a love that really wants to leap up and leave the world. And finally, this last category I put on 4, Levi and Kohen. We may not recognize, but the Kohanim, a priest, was someone that represented pure love. Pure love. A priest was supposed to love every Jewish person. That's why they were able to bring their sacrifices. That's why they were able to pronounce them as needing to go into quarantine from Syrah, because only someone that loves everyone could pronounce that horrible decree. Otherwise, there might be some other agenda mixed in. So Kohen, they were all about loving everyone. A Levi, as we'll see, they were all about Gevura, about lifting the world up. How do they show it? By singing. By singing. As we'll see, singing really is trying to bring myself to some other place, trying to leap up and leave this reality and find a higher reality. So the Kohen and Levi we'll explore is another another metaphor that is trying to describe this love. So any questions about, stop share, any questions about from people online or in the class of anything so far describing this love?
You mentioned that it's a Bina of Gevura?
Correct.
Not Gevura of Bina?
Gevura within Bina. Did I say?
Gevura within Bina,
Yeah.
not Bina within Gevura.
No, the question is, does this love come from Gevura within Bina or Bina within Gevura? It comes from Gevura within Bina.
Okay.
So it's not actually coming from a place of fear. I'm not afraid at this point. I'm not experiencing actual awe. I'm experiencing love. But that love comes from the way that Bina, the way that my intellectual thought process, which might sit and meditate and say, well, there is no world, right? And go into the details. What does that mean? There is no world. There's no me. There's no mitzvahs. There's no Torah. There's no tshuva. There's no averas. There's no sinning. There's the whole thing here. There's nothing to struggle about. There's no evil. There's no good. There's just, and you sit and meditate on that. And within your Bina, within your capacity for meditation and contemplation, now that Bina borrows from Gevura. There is an awe that's within Bina, but it's an intellectual awe. It's not an emotion yet. And so within that ability to meditate on that divine concept that there is no world and all the details of that, now there's a Gevura within that leads to a love which just says, what? Why am I even bothering with this? I'm so sick of this. I just want to be one with God. That's all there is, right? But I'm not feeling emotional awe. I'm feeling emotional love. Make sense? So it is the meditation of Bina, of my intellectual capacity, that borrows from gevura, the sense of like, I want to rise up out of the world, there's nothing here for me, that leads to an actual expression of chesed, which is chesed itself. Make sense? It's a good question. He says no. I did my best. Okay, any other questions or any other better answers for that question?
I have a comment.
Yes, Ellen.
Every time you talk on this subject, I think of the word nullified. And that's how my brain processes it.
Yeah, nullified, bitul, right? So the world is nullified, the world is non-existent, the world is really just also part of that oneness. It just seems like it isn't. But with my capacity of being, with my capacity of contemplation and meditation, I can explore and expand on and go into that divine concept. The world is nullified, the world's bitul. And so if the world is nullified, what desire do I have for anything here? What love, what use is there for anything here? There's all this, everything. That's that form of love, and it's the highest because it won't tolerate anything else. Once you've actually gone into that meditation and that emotion starts to flow, how are you going to argue with it? Right? Well, hold on. Don't you love all the things you accomplished? What? There's nothing here. There's no world. What am I accomplishing? Don't you want to do Torah mitzvahs? In what? With what? There's no world. Right? Well, hold on. Don't you want to have another day to pray? Well, pray to who? There's no me. There's no nothing. I'm sick of it. But don't you remember everything we said about building a home in the lowest time? That's intellectual. I don't care about that. This is a love. I love God. I want to be close to God. Right? So once it's flowing, there's just nothing to contradict it because you've been meditating on the fact that the world doesn't exist in front of God. So where's the argument even coming from? Who's arguing? Right? The world that's arguing with my feeling, it does not even exist. So that makes it really the most powerful love, but it doesn't express necessarily intrinsically with people running around expressing love the way you would with the other loves. Although, we'll see at the end of the chapter, it does have to come back and lead Torah and mitzvahs, but we're not there yet. All right, let's 770, where are we?
778.
Let's start from the top. So Eleanor, let's start with Dan.
At the top of the page?
Let's start at the top, yeah.
Okay.
ואחר כך לבחינת חולת אהבה.
Then it reaches the level of love sickness, where the soul is sick with love of God, just as an unquenched physical thirst brings on a state of sickness.
Here's another comparison the author of it makes, that this is like love sickness, when you just have a huge crush on someone and you can't think of anything else, and you almost feel ill from just the constant desire. And that's the level of this love, that what in the world could satisfy this? What in the world could cure this? What in the world even compares to this? All I want is to be one with the all. ואחר כך בא לידי כלות הנפש ממש, כמו שכתוב גם כלתה נפשי.
I'm sorry. And then it comes to a virtual expiring of the soul.
כלות הנפש.
Kilot hanefesh, as it is written, and my soul expires, if not for the consequent contrary sensation of retreat and restraining oneself, as explained further, my soul will literally expire.
And we told the story about the Tzemach Tzedek, and he knocked on the door of the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe said, "Who's there?" He said, "Ich, me." And this went a few times, and the Alter Rebbe let him in and he said, "What's with his ich? What's with his me? Didn't I teach you Chassidus already? There's no you, there's no me." And the Tzemach Tzedek had to do tshuva, it felt terrible, everything fell apart, and he went off and joined a group of beggars until finally he was accused of stealing some silverware, and the police were shouting at him, "You stole it!" And he says, "No, not me, nicht ich, nicht ich." And then he realized that had repented for his the huge sin of referring to himself as an ich. See how serious these people are, right? So you get to the point where you just want to leave that. There should be no ich. There should be no me. My soul expires, like we said, like Nadav and Avihu, that literally were so excited about godliness and wanted to just offer whatever offering in the tabernacle, and their souls just left their bodies and they actually physically burnt up, right? So we're not big tzaddikim that are actually going to literally do that, but we can still have that feeling, or at least aim towards that feeling, that there's nothing here for me. I would even I so want to be with God that I would even accept that my soul would leave my body, but God forbid, it's not actually happening. V'nei mikan yatsa shoresh halavim lamata.
From here, from the level of the higher Givrot, of the higher Bina, is derived the source of the divine service of the Levites below in this world.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. So from here, as we said, from Gvurot within Bina, and now we're not talking about my personal Gvura within my personal Bina, we're talking about of Atzilus, right, of the spiritual world. So this is the higher Gvurot of the cosmos within the higher Bina of the cosmos. That's where the source of the service of the Levites comes from. The Kohanim that would serve and sacrifice at the temple, they are bringing chesed down, and the root of their service is from chesed, from love. But the Levim, that's all about singing and elevating and bringing the world back up, their service comes from Gvura within Bina of the higher worlds. And in Midrash, this is interesting, it says that in the future, because as we say often, in Reform Judaism we believe in a messianic era, just like every other mainstream denomination of Judaism. We differ on is there a personal figure or not, fine, but we're working towards a messianic era. In that messianic era, Midrash says, the world will be elevated, the world's going to be different, it'll be primarily spiritual, and there's going to be a change that today's Levites, or the Levites of the temple time, will be the Kohanim of the future.
So they become the priests?
That's what it seems to say, they'll become the priests.
Oh, really?
And there's all kinds of arguments, because hold on, you're not allowed to change anything in the...
Now, who says this?
It's from, I've heard discussed from Midrash.
Okay.
Here, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria. A smarter person could say exactly what Midrash and from where
All right.
he's quoting Yitzchak Luria, right? There's a lot of places. And it raises a question, like your eyebrows are going up, like
Whoa.
the Kohanim are supposed to be Aaron's descendants. It says so in the Torah. How can you change that? Right? And so we'll get into it. There's a whole discussion about what it means. It's not literally the descendants who are the Kohanim now will be demoted, because you can't do that, and the Levites will be promoted. It's something else. But for now, let's look at, if you want to go to it now, yeah, let's go to it now. Let's do one more. Uchmo shemar harizal zichron livracha al pasuk v'kohanim halavim shalavim al achshav shel achshav yu kohanim le'atid. Let's go online. Eleanor, why don't you start for us? Top is 779 as our master.
As our master, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria of blessed memory, commented on the verse, but the Kohanim, the Levites, that the Levites of today will become the Kohanim of the future.
So there's an interesting word in here. Halavim shel achshav, the Levim of now, which is a strange way for Yitzhak Luria to phrase it. We just say, it'll switch. The Levim will become the Kohanim, the Kohanim will become the Levim. Why Halavim shel achshav? How that's understood is that it's not actually that the physical descendants of the Kohanim will now be demoted. What it means is the Levim of achshav, the Levim of now, their souls come from the side of Gvura, and their service is actually at a higher level than the Kohanim whose souls come from the side of Chesed. Except that because the world is in a lower place right now, that lower service of the Kohanim on the left side of Chesed, that is in a higher status, right? So those souls in the state now that the world is in, before the Messianic era, that's the highest service we can have, is the side of Chesed. But once the world reaches this tipping point and is even higher and spirituality is more apparent, now we'll see that the service of the Levim was actually higher. And what's going to happen is not that those people will be promoted. It will be that now the souls of the Levim that always came from the side of Gevurah, they'll be born not into the bodies of their descendants, the physical bodies of the Levim. they'll now be born into the physical bodies of the descendants of the Kohanim. So Aaron's descendants will still be Kohanim because those physical bodies are still from the seed of Aaron. That's the Kohanim physically. But now it's going to flip, and the souls of the Levim that were serving on a higher level, they'll be able to be born within the bodies of the descendants of Aaron, and they will do this higher service, which is actually from Gevurah on the left. It's kind of tasty stuff, right? I don't know how key it is to me loving God, but there's the explanation I learned. Vavodat halavim haita leharim kol rina v'toda b'shira v'zimra b'nigun unima.
The Levite service of God was to raise their voice in melody and thanksgiving with song and music, tunefulness and harmony. Music characteristically combines varied and even opposite moods, some serious, stemming from Gevurah, and others happy, stemming from Chesed.
So how do we see that higher form of service exhibited? How does it manifest? It manifests from the singing that they did. That in singing itself, you have the voice rises up, and then it comes back down, and then it rises again, and there's this trying to elevate the world, and trying to, as I said, bring the world somewhere else with the power of that song. And what's the shape of it? Bivchinat ratzo v'shov. Go ahead. Sorry, I closed my screen. Paul, if you'll unmute.
I am unmuted.
There you
Am
go.
I? No,
Yeah, you're good. We hear you. Yeah.
you can hear me. Okay. Their music progressed in a manner of advance and retreat. Ratzo, literally running, and shov, returning. This echoed their form of serving God, the headlong advance toward Kalot HaNefesh, and the restraint, retreat, and return from that point.
So we're now switching to the second half of the chapter. The first half was talking about this upward motion of this love like gold, this fire that rises up and just wants to leave the world. And all of us, students of the Tanya, are asking the question, but we know that the whole point of creation is to create a home for God here in the Tachtonim, in the lowest place, in my own animal soul. So what's the point now of learning about this love that's going to have me want to leave the world, and I'm not going to bother doing mitzvahs, I'm not going to bother doing Torah, I'm not going to bother helping my wife, I'm not going to bother giving charity, because what's charity? There's no world, right? So what's the point? And it's the highest level of love. Imagine, we've already learned that the whole point of existence is to bring God down. How does this help us? Here's where we're going to go, and it has to do with this concept of ratzo v'shov, which is advancing and retreating. Advancing and retreating. So before we go on, let's just look at the service of the Levites, because it really speaks to it. And it's a bridge between the first half, which speaks about the upward motion, and the next half of the chapter, which brings it back to the downward motion, the shuv or shov. And we see it in singing. The Levites would sing while the sacrifices were being given, and that song would rise up and rise down. And the Alter Rebbe already compared this type of love to the verse Tzama lecha nafshi, that it creates a thirst. Someone find that for me. Where was that? That was on page. There you go. On page 777. From this love, the soul comes to a thirst, as is written, "My soul thirsts for you." Tzama lecha nafshi. Right? This Psalm 63, verse 2. And the psalm speaks exactly about this, that my soul gets so thirsty from this heat, from this fire, that it wants to rise up, that it's just thirsty for God, and it's expressed in the service of the Levim, that rise up and come down, and rise up and come down. So before we go on, I'll share with you a beautiful nigun, a beautiful melody that was written exactly to this verse for one of the birthdays of the last Rebbe of this tradition. And try and see if you can sense in this that longing that this whole love like fire embodies. If you know it, sing with me. Tzama lecha nafshi, kama lecha besari, beretzia ve'ayef bli ma. Yama mama ma, yama mama ma, ay 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 ayam mama ayam mama ay 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 ayam ken b'kodesh chazi sicha lirai suscha v'chvodecha ken b'kodesh chazi sicha lirai suscha v'chvodecha yamam mamam ayam mamam ay 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 ayam mamam ayam mamam ay 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 ay. If you think that's a long nigun, you should be at a Farbrengen. They can go on forever. You can sing one for 8-10 minutes, right? But that's the feeling. Right? That's the feeling. Is that, well, my soul thirsts for God. There's just, this world is nullified. Everything is done. All my struggles, even mitzvahs and Torah, forget it. Just give me God, nothing else. Right? That's the highest love. But like we said, we have a problem because that's not the point of why we're here. That's not the point. And the Tanya is about how to be a Beinoni, how to think, speak, and act, always the productive thing, and actually create a home for God down here. So how does this love lead to that? Let's find out. Shehi, bottom 780, and we're at, Linda, if you'll read the next one. Shehi bechinat ahava azazo keshal hevet hayotze minam bazak, kidita bagmara perek bet da chagiga. Hey, you looking for your unmute?
Got it.
There you go.
Okay. 780. Oops.
Yeah, the bottom, such is the nature.
Sorry, my pages are going slow.
I got it.
Such is the nature of this intense love, like a flame that flashes out of the bazak, as is mentioned in the Gemara.
So what's a bazak?
Go on to
This
the
flame
next.
that's coming out of the bazak. That's a utensil for refining gold. So you have gold, you want to make it more pure gold. You put it in this clay utensil. You heat it up until the impurities come out. And when it's really hot, these flames will just flash out of it. You can imagine there'd be bursts of flames that burst up and come down. Right. So this is from Ezekiel's vision of the chariot, and the chayot, the angels were like running up and coming down, and there was a bazak involved in the chariot, and there was flames flashing out of it. So if we want to know what this love is, it's like this magnificent celestial fire that flashed out of this vision of Ezekiel's chariot that was flashing up and coming down and flashing up and coming down. It was not static like silver. It was always moving up and then coming down, always moving up and coming down. And there was this pulse that actually defines everything in life. Right? If we look at even science and how we understand the world, we understand everything is motion, everything is energy, everything is always vibrating. Everything that we thought was a physical particle is actually also a wave and is also coming up and down. And the nature of everything is not to be static. It's ratzo v'shuv. It's a wave form. It's going up and down. And that's the underlying nature of the universe. That's also the pattern, like my breath, like my heartbeat, that's also the pattern of my own spiritual service. That when I'm meditating, creating love, it's not just to rise up and have kol nefesh and boom. And by the way, that is a little bit of the Eastern process of just going up towards enlightenment and staying there. That's not it in Judaism. Any form of love, even this form, has to come back down like the flame of the bazak. ואי אפשר לבאר עניין זה היטב במכתב, רק כל איש נלבב ונבון, המשכיל על דבר ומעמיק לקשר דתו ותבונתו בשם ימצא טוב ואור הגנוז בנפשו המשכלת כל אחד לפום שירה דילי. Let's go back to Dan.
It is impossible to explain this subject clearly in writing. Yet every person with a feeling heart, that is, who has perfection of heart, who is understanding in that he uses his faculty of bina, and intelligent in grasping a subject by using his faculty of chokhmah, and delves deeply to attach his mind and understanding to God by using his faculty of dat, will find the goodness and light concealed within his intelligent soul, each according to his capacity.
And again, for those, if anyone new is joining us online and you're looking for a system of meditation, you could read this and just think he's talking about really thinking about it and using different words. Every person with a feeling heart who has understanding and intelligence and grasping a subject delves deeply to attach his mind and understanding to God. But now we know these are specific code words, specific slices of intellectual consciousness that he's talking about, that we've learned about, Chabad, Chokhmah, Bin, and Dat. And so he's describing the whole process in order, right? Well, not exactly in order, but anyone that has understanding, which is Rakolish, Nilbav, Vinavon, who has, so actually this is starting from Bina, so maybe that's why he actually is going in order. He's starting from Bina here. That anyone that actually delves into their Bina, Hamaskil al davar, use their seichel and intelligence in grasping a subject, and then he goes into dato, and use your faculty of dat to actually attach yourself to it, so you have a feeling about it. It's not abstract. Will find the goodness and light concealed within my intelligent soul, each according to my capacity. So this is a very, very lofty form of love. It's impossible to explain it clearly in this book, but each person will have their own level of being able to accomplish this. A big tzaddik will maybe actually have kolot nefesh, God forbid, but they should come back down. A normal person will just have this feeling of like, oh, I'm sick of the world. I'm lovesick for God. Who knows? If you meditate hard. Yesh mitpa'el chulu v'yesh mitpa'el chulu.
One is affected in one way from one type of meditation, and one is affected in another way by a different form of meditation.
Right, so we'll do one more. He's saying maybe this highest form of love is not the ideal pathway for everybody. Maybe you want to just meditate on the things you love in the world, that they come from God, and that'll create avat olam, a love that's connected to the world, and that's a love too that can elevate Torah and mitzvahs. אחרי כלימת יראת חטא להיות צור מרע בתכלית שלא להיות עוונותיכם מבדילים חולו חס ושלום. One more, Rick.
After prefacing this meditation by fear of sin, the fear of doing wrong by sinning, in order to become utterly removed from evil, withholding oneself from doing any wrong to avoid your transgressions, interposing between you and God. God forbid.
God forbid. So as we learned, the fundamental here is actually awe. The fundamental to get started on any of these other meditations, these other loves, is having a basic level of lower awe, which was, if I was driving down the street and there was a police car behind me, I would not speed. I'm not overly speed, right? I wouldn't speed to the point of getting a ticket. I might speed 3 miles an hour. I'm not going to say that I won't. So is the police behind me, right? But you're not going to do 20 over, right? Whereas if I'm in a rush and the police isn't there, I might, who knows, right? I might make a mistake and speed. But if there's a police car right behind me, I wouldn't speed. If there's a delivery person in my house, I'm not going to snap and yell at anyone in my family. I'm going to wait till after. When I'm alone, I'll snap and yell at them, right? But when someone's watching me, I can be better. I can push myself higher. I can function higher. So just having that basic fear that I have of a police person or of a delivery person where I'm embarrassed to do the wrong thing because they're watching me, I should have at least that level of awe and fear of the Ein Sof, who's aware of everything. Right? So that's the baseline we've learned. And that's going to keep, thanks Dan, that's going to keep my counterproductive side from blocking all these loves. Because if I don't even recognize that God is watching me while I'm thinking, speaking, and doing things, now any love that I have is going to be somewhat of an illusion. Because there's God going like, yeah, you love me, but You just yelled at my children, right? Every one of these people is my children. You're snapping at them, you're yelling at them. Someone came to you for help and you didn't bother helping them, and you love me? If you love me, you'll help my children. You kidding me? If you love me, I said don't do this, and now you're doing it, and you love me? So for the love to really be sincere, we want that baseline where you can come to God and say, I did my best in terms of the things he said not to do. I'm functioning at my highest level now, and now I'm going to work on love. But the biggest problem here is, like we said, in the Tanya, when the Alter Rebbe explores love and awe, and in fact, love and awe are mitzvahs in and of themselves. It's a mitzvah to love God, and it's a mitzvah to fear God. But a chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, a new approach of the Alter Rebbe, he said, yeah, they are mitzvahs in and of themselves, but they're in a different category. They're mitzvahs that are not a goal in and of themselves, the same way giving tzedakah is, or the same way Shavuot, what's coming up, milk on Shavuot, right? Receiving the 10 Commandments, reading the Torah. Cheesecake, right? Let's use a formal mitzvah, though. So reading the Torah on Shavuot, that's a mitzvah in and of itself, right? Why am I reading the 10 Commandments on this day? Why 10 Commandments and not 12? Why from a scroll and not from an iPad? It's just a mitzvah. Like, you don't need an explanation to say, I want to read the 10 Commandments from a Torah with a blessing on Shavuot, because it's a mitzvah, right? That's what God wants. Boom, end of story. It's not for something else. It has its own light. It elevates the world. Love and awe, that's different from that. Yeah, there are mitzvahs in and of themselves, but you can't say they're not there for something else, because they are. And this is a chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. Thank you. He said, love and awe, they also serve as wings for every other mitzvah. They also serve to elevate every other mitzvah, right? Because you don't want your mitzvahs to stay rolling around the world. You want them to elevate the world and get back with godliness and unite with the 10 Syrah of your world. And so whenever you have love, you have to bring it back down to the world. It has to elevate something. It's not there just for its own sake. And you can't say, fine, I'm going to meditate, have this love like gold, and why are you bothering me? I am doing a mitzvah. I'm loving God. So you don't have to bother me with now anything coming back and giving charity or anything else, because I'm in the middle of a mitzvah. Don't disturb me. By halacha, I'm not allowed to leave doing this mitzvah, which only I can do, by the way, because no one else can love God for me, right? So he says, no, love and awe, they're different. You do always have to attach them to your other mitzvahs. And now we're going on we'll do a little bit of the end of the chapter. והנה סדר העבודה בעסק התורה והמצוות הנמשכת מבחינת אהבה עזה זו היא בחינת שוב לבד.
In order for one's divine service through occupation with Torah study and mitzvot, a service derived from the intense love is possible only in a manner of retreat, when the soul withholds itself from expressing in order to fulfill the divine intent, which can only be realized when the soul remains within the body.
Right, so the order of divine service, if I'm going to actually serve God, you can only do it by coming back down. You can only do it by saying, I'm gone from the world, there's no world, but anyways, I'm going to come back to the world and give charity. Anyways, I'm going to come back to the world and I'm going to learn some Torah with my mouth and say it, right? So you have to come back down, and that's the whole purpose of the love. When we say, yeah, you'll have them on your heart, and you'll speak of them, and you'll do the things. So that's the order of the Ahavta. Once I have the state of loving God, the point of the love is to now motivate me to actually serve God by doing mitzvahs and learning Torah. That's the normal course. So how is this love going to do that? Because it seems to point just up. How is it going to follow the normal course of service that we know what we're supposed to be doing? Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah. I have I have like a copy of Sefer Yetzirah in my office, and maybe twice a year I'll pull it out to like look something up, and I'll start reading it, and I'll be like, let me read a few chapters. My wife always knows. She's like, are you reading Sefer Yetzirah? Because I forget everything. I'm gone. I'm like another person, apparently. Like, she can always tell when I'm in my Sefer Yetzirah mode. It is the first book of Kabbalah. It's supposed to be written by Abraham, or some say by Adam, by the first being, So as it's written in Sefer Yetzirah, I'm in Hebrew. K'mo shekatuv b'Sefer Yetzirah, v'im ratz libecha shuv lechad. They're laughing at me. It's not.
You already started. You thought about the book.
It's good. It's good to take me down a little here. Perush, vim ratz libcha, hi tshukat הנפש שבלב בחלל הימני, כשמתגברת ומתלהבת ומתלהטת במאוד מאוד עד כלות הנפש ממש, להשתפך על כיף אביה חיי החיים ברוך הוא. Sue Ellen, is it, were you?
Next, somebody.
Oh, sorry. Let's go online. Open the gap. Oh yeah, Eleanor, good luck. As it is written. You want to unmute if you can?
As it is written, say for Syrah, if your heart hastens, return to one. If your heart hastens, refers to the craving of the soul that is the right side of the heart, the abode of the divine soul. When this craving predominates and bursts into flame and glows in such rapture that the soul is consumed with the desire, kilot hanefesh, to pour itself out into the embrace of its Father, its source, who gives one life.
So if your heart hastens, return to one. Shuv le'echad. This is a big deal, these two words, and we want to explore it. The Elder Rebbe could just say, now you feel the love, now go and do a mitzvah. It's simple. But he's actually pulling from Sefer Yetzirah. If your heart is full of fire like this, like a bazak, and is leaping up and is about, you feel like you're going to leave your own body and just burst up into this oneness. What do you have to do? Return to the one. And why does he say to the one? Right? Obviously, the big echad we have is in the Shema, right? Ad Hashem echad, God is one. And often we ask, if that's the key prayer, if that's the central piece that's going to get me to love God, is recognizing that God is one, why do I say echad, one, and not yachid, only, singular, right? Unique. Because something can be one, and there can be something else, right? It's not the highest form of unity to say God is one. Seems like we might have missed the mark on that one, right? If I really want to inspire myself to say, just like before the world was created, it's just like that now. There's only God, God unique, God alone, God indivisible. That's yachid. That's yachid. That's unique. That's only. Right? But now that there's a world, and there seems to be all these other beings and planets and creatures and tables, etc. Okay, I'm going to say God is one. Great, God's one. You can't divide God, but there's also another. Right? One doesn't mean there's not another. So why are we saying echad, echad, echad every day? Why is that the thing we repeat? Why do we meditate on echad and not yachid? It's a deep question. It's a deep question. What does echad mean? This is a well-known, this is just what you focus on according to the Shulchan Aruch, I think. According to just very, very straightforward halachic Judaism. When you say echad, this is the meditation you're supposed to do. You have 3 words in echad, and I'm sorry I didn't do a slide, but I don't want to try and share my screen. It would take me 10 minutes. Echad has 3 letters, Aleph, Chet, Daled. The Aleph means one. Aleph is the letter 1. Aleph is God. Aleph is there's just one. That's God, that's Yachid, that's unique, there's nothing else. There's only God. That's the oneness. What's Chet? You're probably familiar. Chet is the number 8. And that represents the earth and the 7 heavens. So you have God, the Aleph, anywhere in the 7 heavens or the earth. And then the Daled is 4, that's 4 directions. So you can look anywhere you want in the earth and the 7 heavens in all 4 directions. There's only this Aleph, there's only Echad, there's only one. That's the meditation, the simple meditation when we're saying the Shema. So why didn't we have Yachid? Why do we have Echad? Because actually, when God created the world, God didn't create the world for the sake of Yachid, for the sake of unique, of there's only God, there's nothing else. Because there's no trick to that. Before the world was created, God was Yachid. It was self-evident, and that's the obviousness of infinite reality. God's Yachid. So that wasn't the point of creating the world. Was to say, I want the world to realize Yachid. I want to bring Yachid into the world. The point was to bring the oneness into Echad, because Echad means yes, there's this higher Aleph, this higher level of unity, this Yachid, but now bring it down through the 7 heavens and bring it down into the physical world and look around all 4 directions. And still within that, now in that Echad, now bring God's oneness into that. And that's why God created the world. For the world itself to come to the realization that even though there seems to be this Chet, the 7 heavens, and there seems to be this Dal, these 4 directions, they're all, as you said, Eleanor, they're all batal. They're all nullified to the Aleph. And that's the whole point of returning to the one. When Sefer Sirah says, if you're feeling this kalot nefesh, if you're feeling this love like gold and you want to leave, don't return, don't just do Torah mitzvahs, don't be dissolved into Yachid, into uniqueness of God and infinity. Remember that the point of the world was to bring that Aleph down through the Chet, through the 7 spiritual worlds, into the physical world, in all 4 directions, and wherever I'm walking, whatever I'm doing, bring oneness into that. Into the narishkeit of my day, into the mistakes I made, into the chaos that I'm encountering. Bring it into that. That was the point of the world. And that's how this form of love boomerangs. It boomerangs. Because yes, it would seem to just lead up, 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 up. But then I say, okay, when I'm about to actually expire with Kalor Nefesh, now return to Echad. And remember that it's supposed to happen here. The Aleph is supposed to come down here in all 4 directions in the physical world. Right? Does this make sense? It's deep. There's like 2 more big points to do. So let's stop here, and we'll come back to despite yourself you must live. That's another conversation. Let's do a little meditation. We've done a lot today. So if you find yourself in a comfortable seated position, just as I said, ignite the left side of your mental consciousness, ignite that cognitive potential of your soul. Get it ready for this meditation. Relax your physical body, that wick. And let the breath deepen and smooth, flow freely. Breathing through the nose if you can, and deeply into your belly. Let's start 4 counts for each of the 4 segments of the breathing cycle. So 4 to breathe in, 4 holding the breath in, 4 to breathe out, and 4 remaining empty. And then start over, breathing with me on 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep it full. 2, 3, 4. Back out. 2, 3, 4. Staying empty. 2 beautiful sounds of the breath. Starting over and in. 2, 3, 4. Nice and full. 2, 3. Releasing out. 2, 3, 4. Staying empty. 2. Keep going in your own pace, that same cycle. We're going to open up a Bina gateway, an understanding gateway. So if you've been with us, we have a Chokhmah gateway, that is the space on the in-breath. This will be the space between the end of the out-breath and the beginning of the in-breath. That will be my Bina gateway, my understanding gateway. Just let that open intuitively, so remain there for the rest of the breathing cycle. You're seeing that gateway in your mind, just allow it to expand, sharpen, clarify. Put yourself within that gateway. And within that Bina gateway, let's put this divine concept. The entire world is non-existent before God's infinity. The entire world is not here just like before it was created, still not here. And let that divine concept fill your Bina gateway, fill your mind with more detail, more and more texture and subtlety until it fills your mind. perhaps has emotions associated with it. We're looking for a kind of love like fire, a love like gold. Let's check what emotions are flowing out of your meditation. The world not here has never been here. There's only divine infinity. Let's just anchor any emotions you're feeling. Now direct them to come back down into your day, into your words, your thoughts, your actions, as we open our eyes and come out of this meditation. Very nicely done. Any questions before we sign off? Wonderful. If you want to stay in this meditative state, you're most welcome to, especially if you're watching us on our YouTube channel. You can pause and stay there for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And anybody that wants to join, as I always say, please email maya@temple-israel.org. And we'd love to have you come here. We got people in the room, people on the Zoom, and people joining us virtually from all over. So pleasure to learn with you, and see everybody soon.